This is the Brewers POSTCAST, your instant game reaction for the Milwaukee Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Struggles for this Milwaukee Brewers team unfortunately continue once again as they return home from their 6-game road trip, and they fall to the Minnesota Twins by a final score of 3-0. The offense once again MIA in MKE for the Brewers, a 3-0 loss as they fall 3 games under 500. Hello, everyone, and welcome in to the Locked On Brewers postcast. My name is Brandon Snide. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. You can follow all of my work over at WTMJ.com, where I cover all of our Wisconsin sports teams, the Bucks, the Brewers, and the Packers. I would say there's a lot to get into tonight on the program, and certainly we will dive into some things, but the Milwaukee Brewers continue to struggle to do anything offensively as we now are officially over the halfway point in the month of May, where they now fall 21-24 on the season, 12-8 now with the home record with a 3-0 loss. And I'll give the Twins credit because they are the hottest team in baseball. Now 12 wins in a row. So if they were in Milwaukee, they'd be going to George Webb's for free burgers. But unfortunately, the Brewers are the one that take the loss tonight. Lots of stuff to get into. Kind of mentioned it's kind of a depressing game once again for this Brewers team. Do want to talk a little bit about Chad Patrick. We'll dive into those numbers. The offense is becoming offensive, if you ask me. And I know most Brewers fans out there would probably tend to agree. And we're going to go ahead and tease it now and get your thoughts on it right away. The NL Central is beginning to slip away for the Milwaukee Brewers. I'll give you the reason as to why, but the Brewers fall to the Twins tonight, 3-0. And again, tough one offensively for this Milwaukee Brewers team. They finished the night with just 5 hits, 0 for 7 tonight with runners in scoring position. And to make matters worse, the Twins in this one, the story of this one, actually, you know what? Let's not even waste any more time. Let's dive into the turning point of this game.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Turning point tonight brought to you by Gametime. The turning point is the first inning for the Milwaukee Brewers. 3-0 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, Twins. 2 runs scored in that first inning off Chad Patrick. Another run was scored that following second inning. But that's your turning point, ladies and gentlemen. This Milwaukee Brewers team now 1-16 on the season when the opponents score first. That is really, really bad. It's the worst in Major League Baseball. You guessed it. It is not good. Nick over on YouTube with the first thought of the night. The turning point is when the game started. Absolutely right. That's exactly what happened. The Brewers fell into a 3-0 hole early, and this offense, as I mentioned it, has become offensive to starting pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers, or even bullpen pitching for that matter, as they just cannot get anything going offensively. We saw a little bit of it in Game 3 against the Cleveland Guardians, where they won that game 9-5. But Rhys Hoskins was fantastic in that game. Tonight, just terrible. Jackson Chourio, 4 strikeouts. Let's see. Christian Yelich, 0 for 3. Sal Frelick had 1 hit. Caleb Durbin and Joey Ortiz I could probably hit better than those 2 right now at the plate. Bryce Terrain, 1 for 4. Got to give William Contreras credit. He had 2 of your 5 hits tonight. Again, nothing out of Christian Yelich and nothing out of Jackson Chourio. Both those guys combining for 6 strikeouts on the evening. And that is what we have kind of been talking about as the season has progressed now into May. You're only going to go as far as those 2 guys are willing to take you. And I know that might not be fair to them, certainly not to Chourio. Yelich is a former MVP in the National League. But based on what the team that was presented, the team that was given to you from, I wouldn't even say general manager Matt Arnold, because I think for what he's been given, he's doing the best that he possibly can. But this is the team that we have. This is the roster that this team currently has, what Pat Murphy has to work with. Has he pulled every string right? Absolutely not. Have the players pulled every string right? Absolutely not. It's been a total failure so far on the season as the Brewers lose to the Twins 3-0. They fall to 21-24 on the season. Lots of reaction pouring in over on YouTube. Again, thank you guys for always making Locked On Brewers your first listen each and every day. If you're not a subscriber to the YouTube channel, please do yourself a favor, do me a favor, and Chuck Freeman, who has you on the daily podcast for the Locked On Brewers, wherever you get podcasts, including right here on YouTube. We have maybe a Twins fan on here. Sorry, guys, I say this not to troll from bias, etc. Brewers just aren't very good right now. Now I have double bets on Tigers and Cubs, both to win their divisions. Yeah, I mean, you're not trolling. I think every Brewer fan that listens to the podcast, every Brewers fan that watches them for 5 minutes probably can tell you they're just not very good. Cody on YouTube, shut out for the third time in 4 days. Is there a word other than pathetic? Yeah, I don't think so. I really don't. I don't think so. Unfortunately, the struggles in May continue for this Milwaukee Brewers team, and it's not going to get any better. Pablo Lopez on the mound for the Twins tomorrow, so things will just get even tougher for this Milwaukee Brewers team. More injuries, Jose Quintana, Brandon Woodruff, and we can talk a little bit about that as the show goes on. Nick, also on YouTube, Matt A. and Mark A. need to get a reliable bat if they want to save the season. This season, a trade is needed. Otherwise, the crew are sellers in 2 weeks at the rate they are going. It's also going to be part of what you'll be talking about tomorrow segment, and we'll dive into it. Again, curious your thoughts. There's going to be a cutting, a point where you have to draw a hard line in the sand, and you got to kind of cut your losses at this point in the season. I think it's right now, it's too early. 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, it's very possible this Milwaukee Brewers team is double digits out of the NL Central. It's possible. It is possible. I'm not saying it's likely. I know a lot of you in the YouTube and will watch this video and will try to get on me about being hyperbolic about this, but it is possible. Peek at the Cubs schedule and you'll understand why I'm going in that direction for the Milwaukee Brewers, who continue to not be able to string together any runs. 1-16 on the season when the opponent scores first. 0-for-7 tonight when they had runners in scoring position. Brewers kill 823 over on YouTube. We need a left side of the infield that has a bat. Geez, yeah, I mentioned it, Durbin and Ortiz. I think Brewers kill 823. I think you and I could probably put up better numbers. Ortiz, 176 batting average. Durbin, 179 batting average. Their slugs, both in the low to mid 200s. Just not very good whatsoever as the Brewers lose tonight to the Twins by a final of 3-0. The player of the game, as well as what you'll be talking about tomorrow. Again, we're taking your reaction as the show goes on, as the Brewers lose to the Minnesota Twins. I keep wanting to say Timberwolves. I know basketball is going on right now. The Minnesota Twins tonight by a final score of 3-0. Coming up after the break, the MVP of the game, as well as the things you'll be talking about tomorrow. The program tonight is brought to you by Gametime. Guys, there is not a better time than to download the Gametime app. Have you ever decided to head to the last minute, to head to the ballpark with friends or family? Maybe it's game day. Maybe you're going to go to the Brewer game tomorrow. Spoiler alert, I'll be at the Brewer game tomorrow. WTMJ is having a tailgate party at the Brewer game, Yount lot number 1. Head out there. And if you don't have tickets, jump onto Gametime. You can save money when you save on tickets. You can now splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible. Here's the one thing I love about Gametime that you don't necessarily get with the other apps. When I look at other apps and I go on to a game, I want to go to a Brewers game, I want to go to a Bucks game, I don't always get to see the seat views. And I don't know exactly, if I'm not familiar with the arena, I'm not exactly sure where that seat is. Gametime app allows the seats to be seen right in the app before you buy them, so you know exactly where you will be. They also have those incredible last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. Listen to this, guys. Come close. Listen to this. Use that code, $20 off of your first purchase. $20. Okay, that's like 2 beers and maybe some peanuts at American Family Field. $20. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On MLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Again, guys, use the code Locked On MLB at checkout. Program also brought to you tonight by FanDuel, and hopefully you didn't have any props on the Milwaukee Brewers tonight in their 3-0 loss. However, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and I mentioned the Minnesota Timberwolves. They're on to the Western Conference Finals. The New York Knicks are heading to the Eastern Conference Finals. Feels like every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. All right. If you got a read on who's heating up, and spoiler alert, it's nobody in the Milwaukee Brewers lineup, but maybe in the Twins lineup, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How does a $20 bonus in bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? Bet $5, win, boom, $200 in bonus bets. If you're new to FanDuel, perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. We mentioned with Gametime how much $20 can get you, how many beers and maybe some peanuts. Think about what that $200 can do in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Again, guys, very, very simple. If you're new, sign up, head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Sounds like a win-win if you're looking to win some money. The Milwaukee Brewers falling to the Minnesota Twins tonight. This one by a final score of 3-0. The Twins scoring the first 3 runs in the first 2 innings of this one. Chad Patrick, again, I thought was steady tonight. I think he fixed it rather quickly tonight. He allowed those early 3 runs against a very, very good Minnesota Twins team, although they didn't have 2 of their top players in the lineup tonight, Alex Correa, Byron Buxton, after they collided the other day out in the outfield. But nonetheless, they beat the Milwaukee Brewers by a final score of 3-0. The Brewers now 21-24. Lots of reactions still being poured in. Jason, an everydayer over on YouTube. It's hard to believe that Willie made this much of an impact that our players could only hit with him on the squad. Far from a joy to watch this team this season. Yeah, it's been tough. It's been absolutely tough. Lee over on Twitter. What's happening to Trio? Haven't watched enough. Plate discipline. Again, we kind of talked about Trio before. I also wonder if maybe there was a lot of pressure put on him to perform at the level or even higher than he did a season ago, and it's just obviously not working out in his favor tonight. He was 0 for, I believe, 4 tonight. Let me look at it real quick. 0 for 4 tonight with 4 Ks. And it's been brutal at the plate. His plate discipline hasn't been great. Manager Pat Murphy, I talked about, he needs to take more walks and be a little bit more patient. We're just not seeing that out of Jackson Troyer. Could be pressing a little bit, trying to carry a team whose offense continues to search for their own identity because they have absolutely nothing so far. And that showed once again tonight in a 3-0 loss to the Minnesota Twins. Mr. Ben over on YouTube, the Twins pitching was as advertised. Give them credit. Brewers bats were also as advertised. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. And tonight, you mentioned the Mr. Ben, you mentioned the Twins pitching. Let's get into the player of the game.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
6 innings pitched, no runs, struck out 9 Brewers tonight. Joe Ryan absolutely dominating this Milwaukee Brewers offense from start to finish. In the 6th inning is when he wrapped up. And the Twins bullpen coming in and shutting down the Milwaukee Brewers following that. Got to tip your cap and give credit where credit is due. And tonight, unfortunately, once again, I think this has got to be 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th different opposing starting pitcher that we have handed out the Player of the Game awards to here on the Locked On Brewers postcast, because the Milwaukee Brewers offense continues to not do anything. And tonight, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position, 1-16. All these numbers I have mentioned before, 1-16 now when their opposing teams score first. Jay on YouTube, Brewers are brutal to watch. it's funny you say this, Jay, because it's a very simple comment that you make. And again, I appreciate it. Thanks to each and every one of you for dropping your thoughts as the Brewers lose to the Twins 3-0. You're absolutely right. And I can point to a number of different years where I knew the Brewers and the expectations were down. I knew they probably didn't have a chance in the division. I knew they definitely didn't have a chance in the playoffs, but it always gave me something to watch. It gave me a reason. Gave me a reason to watch, whether it was younger guys coming up, whether it was Ryan Braun or Prince Fielder or Ricky Weeks or, JJ Hardy. It gave me a reason and excitement to watch. I have none of that when I watch this team right now. I have none of that. I have nothing to get excited for when I watch this Milwaukee Brewers team. Actually, let me take that back slightly. I get excited for Chad Patrick. And I mentioned to you guys before how much I like him. I thought he's my honorable mention for player of the game. Now, when he pitches, obviously it's not every day. But 6 innings pitch for Patrick. He allowed the 3 runs, but those 3 runs happened in the first 2 innings. And after that, the Twins obviously didn't score for the rest of the ball game. And that includes the 4 innings afterwards that Chad Patrick allowed those first 3 runs. So again, I guess he's the lone-ish bright spot in this game, as he's part of the reason that the Brewers take the loss and 3-0 to the Minnesota Twins. There we go again with the Timberwolves as they win their 12th in a row, and they beat the Milwaukee Brewers tonight by a final score of 3-0. The Brewers now 3 games under 500. Jamie over on YouTube. Brandon, when do you think and at what point do we start thinking, quote, it's too late coming up at 45 games? Jamie, thank you for your fantastic comment. Thank you for being every dayer here on the Locked On Brewers postcast. Without further ado, let's dive into the things you'll be talking about tomorrow.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Brewers losing tonight to the Minnesota Twins 3-0. They now fall 3 games under 500, 21-24. Jamie over on YouTube. I'm going to bring your comment back up here, Jamie, because I thought it was fantastic, and it leads me into the things you'll be talking about tomorrow as we get set to wrap the show up. At what point do you think starting too late is coming up on 45 games in? So basically, when do we think it's going to be too late for this Milwaukee Brewers team? Well, it's funny that you bring that up, Jamie, because as the Brewers schedule continues to get tougher, and it does get tougher, especially there's spots in May, and obviously as the season goes on, right now, as it stands right now, the Milwaukee Brewers are 5 games back from the Chicago Cubs in the National League Central. Now, you may think, Brandon, it's May 16th. Like, why are we looking at the standings? There's plenty of baseball left to be played. Yes. However, the Chicago Cubs won tonight 13-3 over the White Sox. They have 2 more games, Saturday and Sunday, against the Chicago White Sox, their friends on the South Side. And then they play a 3-game series against the Miami Marlins. So their schedule continues to get easier and easier. They already played the Dodgers. They already played the Padres. They already played the New York Mets. Like, they've done a lot of their heavy hitters especially early in the season in April. And the Milwaukee Brewers just haven't, and they haven't been able to take advantage of the schedule. Now, it does get a little easier for the Brewers. We'll see how they take on the Baltimore Orioles, the Pittsburgh Pirates, Boston, but then it's Philly. You got San Diego in there for the Brewers. You got St. Louis. Then St. Louis has done, they're 9-1 in their last 10 games. The Cardinals are 25-20 overall. They've won 9 out of their last 10. So I wouldn't write off the 4-game series against the against the Cardinals. Then right after the Cardinals, you have a series against the Chicago Cubs. We are going to know by mid-June, Jamie, and to everybody over on the Locked On Brewers postcast YouTube chat, we're going to know by mid-June, that's going to be the cutoff date, right? I would say that series with the Cubs wraps up June 19th. I guess it's technically just over the middle of June. But that's going to be, for me, that's going to be the hard line that I'm drawing for this team. Because if right now you're 5 games, right? You need at least 2 out of 3. The next 2 out of 3, you need to win the next 2 games against the Minnesota Twins here. And if you don't, by the end of the weekend, there's a chance you're 7 games back in the NL Central by May 19th. And then your schedule, if you're the Brewers, outside of the Orioles and the Pittsburgh Pirates, it gets tougher. It gets tougher. And a lot of those are division games, 4 against St. Louis, 3 against the the Cubs, 3 against San Diego. Cincinnati's been playing a little bit better. Philadelphia, you got 3 against Philly, 3 against Boston. It's tough. It's a tough stretch for the Milwaukee Brewers, as Greg over on YouTube. End of June Brewers may be sellers. I think, yeah. And I'd be curious. And again, I know a lot of you are going to be wondering who would be at the top of that list. That's something we can dive into as this team goes on and see if we can kind of right the ship. But right now, it doesn't look good for the Milwaukee Brewers as they fall tonight to the Twins 3-0. My thanks to each and every one of you for always paying attention over there on the Locked On Brewers YouTube chat. Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for making Locked On Brewers part of your day and your first and last listen each and every day. Remember, wherever you get podcasts, you can get the Locked On Brewers Postcast edition. Just hit that download button, hit that subscribe button, set your reminders. We go live following the Milwaukee Brewers games as tonight. A tough one, 3-0 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. My name has been Brandon Snide. You can follow me on Twitter at Brandon_Snide. I'll be out at the Milwaukee Brewers game tomorrow against the Minnesota Twins as they take on the Twins there at American Family Field. We'll talk to you soon.